Hello and welcome. A wonderful Friday afternoon here in Seattle, and the sun is out, the sun is shining, and our video for some reason is not working quite as well as we want it to today. So that's the joy of technology. Well, this week has been a fantastic week. We've been deep into story, and that's why you're here, right? You're wondering how you could tap into this power, this story power, what you can do with it to have an impact and to push things forward, to break through, to get that next level of investment, to get from Series A to Series B, whether it's talking to your customers, whether it's talking to investors, whatever it happens to be. And that's why you're here. We are excited because that is what we love to talk about. And it's not just about the telling of the story. It's not just about the action or the verb. And for some people that might be easy, but for other people that might not come quite as naturally, and that's totally okay, because it's not just about the telling, it's about the story itself. And if you can focus on the story first, then you will be able to do a better job of the telling of the story. You know, we can get wrapped around the axle, we can get anxious about sort of performing, whether you want to call it performance anxiety or something else. But if we're really well prepared, that changes everything. It's kind of like some of the best presenters I've ever seen always practice. They practice a ton, and it's that practice that results in them coming across as being so natural. And that's what we want, right? We want to be able to be engaging, and we want to be able to move things forward. I'm going to say that again because it is so important. Now, I love doing what we do for so many reasons, and I every Friday, most Fridays, we weren't here last week, so welcome back. We had this opportunity to dig in and pick a poor unsuspecting victim's website and to show how that site could tap into the power of story, take it to the next level, whatever that happens to be. And I am going to talk about these deep, dark woods that we're all navigating our way through. But before we quite get to that, I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of taking advice, making an investment, like whether it's complimentary advice or whether it's something that you're paying for, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. And we like to see what that impact is going to be. We like to see where this stuff is taking us. And what Hannah says here is one of my favorite client quotes of all time, because it touches on so many of these important things. This clarity that we're able to achieve. We want it. We want to be clear. We know that if we're not clear, things are going to go sideways. And if we know that we can be clear, then we are empowered, right? And we're empowered in the telling and the story itself. And ultimately then connecting these dots together, right? In this case, connecting the dots of our customer and the solution that we are delivering, right? And some other expressions of what success looks like here. Here we've got some other fantastic quotes as well. And not just the qualitative, you can see the results that are possible. These are always, we do these with A/B testing. What is the impact that we have when we lead with the products and we lead with the features versus when we lead with the human aspect, the humanity. And that is so important in the age of AI. And it's not that it's important because of AI just being here and being this technology. It's important because anything can be copied now. We've been saying this for years. I remember somebody telling me a story when I was at Intel, and it was back sort of the turn of the century, so 2004-ish, and Intel was all in on China at the time. Huge investments, and a lot of the executives were going out there and learning a lot about how the Chinese manufacturing industry worked. And I remember hearing this story, and the way that it was put to me was, the Chinese can copy anything. And I said, oh, right. So like I've heard about like Nike sneakers, for example, being copied. And they said, yeah, but the thing is it's not a bad copy. It's not like a knockoff, like a knockoff Rolex, which is a $10 Rolex, and it lasts for 5 minutes and then the whole thing just falls apart. We're talking about, like, if you say a pair of Nikes, then an exact copy. And I remember just being blown away. It's always stuck with me. And here we are now in the age of AI, and we've been talking about for the past, 10 years or so, like with SaaS products, that it's so much faster and easier to develop new software now, that keeping an edge, because you've got, take the Intel example, right, near and dear to my heart, spent a big chunk of my early career there, is in the days of silicon being the main focus in the competition, and it being this, the ladder step competition up in silicon, was if you could build the thing, right? If you had a fab and you could actually lay down the silicon and keep pushing it forward and develop these products, you were going to dominate, right? And or if like the early days of the automobile, right? When Henry Ford cracked the production line challenge and was able to churn out more, like that was a competitive advantage, right? But now and for the past 10 years, when it comes to SaaS, it's been so easy to copy products, and that's only getting faster with AI. Like, granted, I do have a computer science degree. That being said, I haven't really done any programming like for the past 20 years, like not a huge amount. And I have done more programming in the past year than I have since about 2000. And it's because of AI, this concept of vibe coding. Have you heard of vibe coding? It's like, it's the vibe. You're giving it the vibe. The vibe is, I want to do this thing with this front end and this back end and this authentication, and work with something like Claude and actually build the thing. This is so unbelievably cool. And it also goes to show how that's a little old me, like, playing around. But if you've got some software development skills, you can copy other SaaS products so much quicker now. And that means that the humanity is so important. And when it comes to these numbers, I'm a big fan of the saying that data wins minds, right? Data wins minds, but hearts win wallets, right? You gotta have the facts, you gotta have the data. That's part of the picture. You gotta get that. You're not gonna make that investment if you're not gonna get a certain performance improvement. Okay, but who are you going to spend your money with in the age where there can be copies and copies and copies of any given service? Stories win hearts, and emotions are a core part of that. That's the humanity. So I love talking about the impact from a facts perspective, from a data perspective, and talking about it from a hearts and emotions perspective. And all of that being said, let's go back in time, shall we? Let's travel all the way back. Are you ready for this? We got the time machine going on. Anybody guess what year we're going to be going to? Is it 2000? Is it 2015? No, it's 1978. 1978. We've gone back in time now to 1978. And you've got a 6-year-old Matthew who is in the absolute crucible of having to figure out the patterns of communication and stories that are going on around him. Just so happened that where we lived at that time in 1978 the house was a fixer-upper, to say the least, more of a building site. My parents were stressed out. We'd moved because of my dad's job, and then my dad lost his job, and then my mum was pregnant with my sister, and it was just a lot of the kind of the normal stresses that a young family has. And then on top of that, living in this chaotic environment, and my mum also just had some other stuff that she was having to process and deal with. And you got a baby in the mix. And the thing is with babies is they kind of think everything's about them. I mean, we try and shake that. Don't we? But we as humans have this tendency to put ourselves at the center of the universe. And that's actually because of the story. There's a real strong reason for that. And so at that young age, we still haven't figured out the social sensibilities to be like, yeah, okay, I'm not the center of the universe, even though it's everything I'm seeing is from my perspective, right? The sun does not revolve around me, but a 6-month-old baby doesn't know that. And so the 6-month-old baby thinks that anything and everything that happens is to do with it. And in a building site situation where it's not safe to leave a baby, what are you going to do? Well, just so happened there was a safe spot, but it was in the attic. It was way up in the attic, and even outside the attic door, which was my bedroom door, so a hole that went all the way down, all the way to the cellar. Not a place that I wanted to be, like, as a baby, wanting to connect with people, right? And it forced me to read patterns and to try and figure people out at such an early age, and with more intensity than I would have had to otherwise, because I had to try and predict what was going to happen next in my environment, what was going to happen with my mother's decisions from one day to the next, sometimes from 1 minute to the next. Had a huge impact on me. And then we moved to the US and eventually moved back to England. We went to the US for 18 months and we stayed like 9 years. And it was during that time that we're gonna take our time machine and we are going to hop forward, and we're gonna hop forward to, can you guess what year it's gonna be? Comments in the chat, which reminds me, let me pull the chat up so we've got it right here so I can see your messages. Any guesses? Any guesses coming in? Okay, so the year was 1986. 1986. There we go. Answers on the postcard. It was 1986, and that was when I first started keeping a journal, a diary, handwritten. My mother and my teacher colluded to get me to do it in the summer holidays because my handwriting was so terrible. I can report back from the front lines that practice doesn't always make perfect. It does make permanent, because my handwriting is still pretty much terrible. Anyway, I did it that summer, and then in 1987 did it another stint, and then in 1988 we went on this big epic adventure, and because my father was on sabbatical, and I chose to actually keep a diary during that time, and it was for that whole summer, and it's really fun, obviously, to go back and look at it, and I'm proud of the fact that I made that decision. But the following year, when we moved back to the UK, I also chose to keep one in this sort of chaos of moving from one country to another, with parents split between 4,000 miles of ocean and back and forth until we eventually were all back together. But before that happened, I lived with my grandparents for a while, and I kept a diary then as well. So that's 1989. And then can you guess what year it is next? It's only a few years later. It was from 1986 anyway. 1 year later, from what I was just mentioning, 1990, I started keeping it every day, and I stuck with it. That's the amazing thing. Like I'll sometimes say to my wife, like as we're chatting in the evening and I'm writing my diary, which I do every night before I go to sleep. And I said, I just can't believe I've kept at this. I can't believe I've kept at this thing. You know, it's like I'm not a big routine kind of person. Maybe it's the ADHD, I don't know. But I said to my wife, I can't believe that I've kept a journal, a diary, whatever you want to call it, for over 35 years, like every day. So I had that kind of warm up in the 80s, and then boom, 1990, I started doing it. And I asked myself the question, why on earth was I so good at sticking with it when I've been so kind of like from this to that, like computer science and astronomy and computer science and science fiction writing and working in technology in IT, and then working in marketing and sales and marketing and so on and so forth, that I managed to have this red thread. And it's because of all those stories and because of the patterns, right? Those early patterns that I became obsessed with trying to figure out. This gave me a place to just dump it, right? My thoughts and feelings and all that jazz, right? And I continued. So here you got somebody who's been keeping that handwritten journal for so long. In fact, recently discovered that apparently there's less people that have kept a handwritten journal every day for 35 years or more than have summited Everest or have got gold medals. Now, I don't say that to brag, not entirely. I have to admit my ego is in there a little bit, being like, yeah, bloody hell, that's amazing. When I discovered that, I was like, oh, don't have to climb Everest. Okay, that's something of that kind of achievements in the bag. So, because Everest is off the table, as if it was ever on the table. I mean, anyway. So the reason why I say it is because of what we're talking about here, and it's this figuring out the stories. And I've spent my whole life trying to figure out the stories, and has it resulted in me being a good storyteller or a better storyteller than I would be otherwise? Maybe, but it's helped me get better at understanding the stories and synthesizing them, right? I just do it. It's something I do all the time. Well, if we fast forward to 2012, in 2012, I landed my dream job, chief storyteller of one of Microsoft's business divisions, and I couldn't have been happier. But I panicked because when I sat down to start the job, I had this little bird in my ear, Nick Drew, one of my mentors when I worked in sales at Intel. And I remember him saying to me, always find if somebody has done it first. Find if somebody has created the thing first, because then you don't have to do it. Typical salesman thinking, salesperson thinking, and brilliant, right? Conserve energy, right? Salespeople are hunters, right? Conserve the energy, wait for the right moment to strike. Find if somebody's brilliant at making the spears and the arrows or whatever, go with them, right? Don't try and have to do it all yourself. And I actually passed that advice on today at my son's school when I was on the panel judging presentations in science and human history. And I had the two wonderful topics. One was electricity generation and transmission, and the other one was water transmission. And absolutely fascinating. Like, I'm looking at the lights here and the computers and have a refreshed perspective on what it takes to get all of this to us and the differences around the planet. And I had the joy of providing the feedback. Go and find those sources, because they found a really good tool as a part of their work, and I wanted to call them out. So you did a great, fantastic job finding that tool. And you might think that was just a natural thing that you did, but it's really important, and keep doing it. And I sat down to try and figure out my new fancy new role, so excited about, and I went online and I Googled with Bing storytelling in business storytelling, all sorts of different iterations of that. And I couldn't find what I was looking for. What's that, you say? Matthew, what were you looking for? I was looking for approaches, tools, techniques, frameworks that were for business, not for Hollywood, right? Not for the hero's journey. But that's the only thing that I found, and I panicked. And I don't want you to panic. I want you to feel safe in the knowledge that you can take these approaches that we share on these Friday teardowns, the Power of 3D Story, and we're going to use the Power of 3D Story with a website. We're going to have a look at it, and we are going to use that with a custom GPT, and we are going to see if we can improve it. And this week, we're going to do another fresh live selection. And that means you're going to see it with me. So maybe they'll do it. Maybe the company we end up choosing today is going to have a great use of story in its homepage, and maybe there's going to be an opportunity for it to improve. We're going to find that out very soon. Let's go back to what I said about the hero's journey for a second, because we're all on a journey, and it's every day we're actually on multiple journeys, right? My journey today included that experience with the children at my son's school. It includes the time I'm spending with you right now, and it includes other experiences I've had today as well that are part of different journeys that I'm on. You are exactly the same. And the hero's journey can be very appealing, and it does work really well in some scenarios, in some situations. But in business, it's not the right tool for every situation. There are some situations where it works great. If you're creating an ad, right, the hero's journey can work really great. Now, it's not the only story approach that you can use, but it can work. Likewise, a big event production, it can work in those environments when you're putting the customer at the center as the hero, and you're building them up, and you're showing how they've succeeded, and you're telling their story. That can work. And I want you to take it with a pinch of salt, okay? The other thing I want you to take with a pinch of salt is simple frameworks, like beginning, middle, and end. This advice didn't do me any good, and it won't do you any good either, because you'll just have more questions. What goes at the beginning? What goes in the middle? What goes at the end? How do I approach this? How is this different in business? All these kind of questions, right? And so these are the types of things I kept finding. And I was a story interpreter. I had a lot of fun. I ended up getting invited to other teams to help them out with their story and their storytelling as well. At the time, I was still very much focused on the idea of storytelling, like as a concept. I hadn't evolved as a knower of story and storytelling and everything that comes with it. I hadn't evolved enough at that point to understand that the focus should be on story, not on storytelling. Again, doesn't mean that storytelling is not a part of it. Storytelling is a part of it, but story is where our focus should start, because without that, we don't have what we need to go and do amazing things. And it was those amazing things in 2017 that I was able to do. I resigned from Microsoft in 2016, early 2016, and spent a year at a small marketing agency, helping double the revenue, learning about running a small business. And then in 2017, I started Go Narrative. And it was the experience that I was able to have in Go Narrative and the focus on story and narrative that I was able to find my Goldilocks. Not too complicated, not too simple, not too Hollywood, not too beginning, middle, and end, but to find the approach that was what I was craving and what I realized was the right way for applying story in business. Because it's so simple and there's so much under the surface. Metaphors and analogies get overused because they work, because they're meaningful. And I'm going to use one with you right now, and we're going to give it a bit of space, right? Iceberg, tip of the iceberg. We've all heard this, right? We've all used it. And we've all used it and not really spent much time thinking about it because it works, right? For the metaphor or the analogy that we're using at the time. But let's sit with that for a second. The tip of the iceberg. Now, what does that mean? Let's unpack that. Well, the tip, the top part that's sticking out of the water. Okay, well, why is that important? It's important because it's only the tip. The majority of the iceberg is hidden underneath the surface. But you don't have the tip without the iceberg. So the iceberg is vital, supremely important for that tip part. Now, if we look at something like the story of the Titanic, we know the sheer power and destructive capability of an iceberg when it meets a high-speed ocean liner, don't we? So that tip is connected to the iceberg that is filled with power, right? And we can look at the iceberg and say, what is the iceberg, right? Well, the iceberg is made of primarily water. Yeah, there might be some minerals and so on in it as well, but it's frozen water. It's pretty simple. It's H2O, it's crystalline form, and it's tough and it's strong. And it's pretty simple. We go and look at it, we zoom in, H2O, we can see crystalline structure, we can see how it's interacting with the water, and we can go deeper and deeper into those processes, and it's fascinating, the interaction of the surface of the iceberg with which is fresh water, with the salination of the ocean water and how that interacts. There's a lot of interesting things that are going on in there, right? All that data, all that detail, right? But let's zoom back out again. The tip of the iceberg, right? Knowing that there's an iceberg there is that warning, right? Is that we now know that we need to take this into account and make sure that our ship is not near it. And that is what I found with the power of 3D story. Now, flip the coin over because it's not a destructive force. Well, I guess you can use it for evil. I don't, but you could. Please don't. Please don't be evil. Let's all try and not be evil together. The power of 3D story is a license to do good in the world, and to do good because you can help move people forwards. Why? Because you can help them and yourself see the story that you're in and then communicate about that story. And once you can see the story you're in, you're empowered to make the changes you need to shift to get what you want for yourself, your business, whatever it happens to be. So this is really powerful stuff. And we all want things, right? We all crave things in our personal lives, our professional lives. There's always something we want. I'm a bit thirsty right now. So if I pull this up, I muted my microphone before I did the R sound. And I want to tell you why I did that, because I was thirsty, I wanted something, but I didn't. If I pull this up and took a big swig, it's right next to my microphone, it's going to be loud and obnoxious for you. I didn't want that, but I also kind of wanted to do the little dramatic effect at the end. So these are things I wanted, and then also part of that is what stood in the way. I had to make the decision to do it. I had to make sure I hit the mute button, because if I didn't, and so on and so forth, you'd hear the sounds that I didn't want you to hear. And it was through that we get back to where we got a glimpse earlier on. We find our way through. Even that simple thing, right? So we had that thing that stood in the way of the thing we wanted, but it's all about the thing we want. All of it. The thing that stands in the way is a condition, right? It's saying you can't get what you want, right? And the way through is the way through the challenge, right? How we did it, what did we use, what tools or processes or approaches, who helped us, who was there along with us, right? Like more than just any one product, right? Even my water has got water in it. It's a certain type of cup. that I love. I've had this Yeti mug, and no paid promotion here, just being a raving fan. And then microphone, seeing as we're talking about brands, Rode, okay, on a Windows PC. Like all of this stuff is a part of what I just had to solve, right? Even though it's just about being thirsty and having a sip of water. Something so simple has got so much potential detail behind it. This is why it's the tip of the iceberg. Because if you can start with the heart, with the desire, with what is wanted, and you can figure out what stands in the way of you getting to that desire, and then how you untangle the knot to get through to that desire, then you are practicing the very core of the art of storytelling. And because you're being methodical, you're also bringing the science of structure, the methodical, methodology, easy for me to say, and you're making it through. So I like to call these desire, difficulty, and there's a French word, it means the untangling of the knot, denouement. And that's the power of 3D story. And with the power of 3D story, you've got the tip of the iceberg. And the reason why I say, just a second ago, I said what you want and what stands in your way, that's the best place to start with this, I've found that everybody loves figuring their own story out first. Because we're all the center of our own worlds, right? And that there's a reason for that. And I promised I'd get back to it, right? And that is, story is our operating system. Story is the playground that we spend our days in. It's also the API or the communications protocol between us, because story is the operating system of both our brains. We understand it, right? And the way that our brain works includes things like serotonin and dopamine and cortisol, and these have effects on us, and they're triggered by threats in our environment or success in our environment, and they're the physical feelings that we experience are all connected to that, and the emotions that we would describe of those feelings are layered on top of that. And this is all a part of our experience as human beings. And because we all share this, apart from some unfortunate broken people in the world, because we all share this, communicating with it makes sense. So if storytelling is our operating system and it makes sense to communicate with story, is it surprising that we started doing paintings on cave walls? Is it surprising that we did lines in the desert? Is it surprising that we eventually wrote novels and made films, right? They're an expression. They're one endpoint of this. But understanding this stuff is all about tapping into a very fundamental human power. And that is the power of 3D story. And we are going to have a look at a poor unsuspecting victim's website, and we're gonna tear down the story. And this is going to be an experience that we're going to share together. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Right. Sharing away. Here we go. This is our website. Story Teardown GPT is a custom GPT that we've built that uses the power of 3D story. And we've got 10 primary frameworks, or 10 frameworks, and the power of 3D story is our primary. And all of this is in our book, Storytelling for Action. And it's a very practical book, very practical. I didn't want to create a book that was just another thesis on story in business and attempts to square a round peg or round a square peg. And this playbook is what came out of it. And now we've got the first chapter is the power of 3D story. Ta-da! You can get this first chapter from our website, by the way. And then it's a workbook. So it's got guidance, ideas, and it's got spaces for you to actually work on. And then you can take all that stuff and then you can work with AI, for example, to then clean up your ideas and tighten it all together. And what we've done in this teardown is we've created a tailored, specialized version of the Power of 3D story and our latest framework, which is the Emo Pyramid. And that's all about the different layers of communication. Are we just surface level? Or are we thinking about the motivations and the feelings that are driving those? Or are we getting down to what I like to call the fourth level, motivation, emotion, and then feeling at the bottom, that physical element of our experience. Think about the last time you were stressed with work, right? That kind of stuff. Or how do you feel that in your body? Feelings are functional. Feelings are not fluffy, and emotions aren't fluffy either. They serve a function, and they serve us well sometimes, and other times they don't serve us well. Okay, so I've got a little list here of some Seattle startups based here in Seattle, and I'm going to pick one of these. I'm going to pick these ones. Pick number 12 on this. AI-powered personal health coaching engine. Now, it's B2C, and so we'll have a bit of fun with that. If you're B2B, all of this is true. All of this remains true. Or we could do Portex. That would actually prove that even further. Let's do that. I was kind of zeroing in on these ones here, but let's go ahead and do Portex. And so I'm changing my mind. I'm going to Google it with Bing. Actually, okay. Portex, AI-powered integration with banks, credit unions, fintech. So we're going to have a look at the website here. We'll do that first. Now, anybody that's been on these streams before will have an idea of what I'm looking for. What am I looking for? Well, one of the first things I'm looking for is where on this page do we talk about people? Where do people come up? So that's the first one, and the second one is the experiences of those people having. Lots of little pop-ups here. I'm going to close these out. Portex, new Portex unveils PyXZ AI data mapper, AI-powered integration for banks, credit unions, fintech, and cores. Your hub for connecting fintechs, banking, cores, and data, powered by AI-driven integration tools and intelligent data management. Look, I know what it's like to be responsible for a website, both in small business and in big business. And in fact, a very good friend of mine was once the owner of the Microsoft.com website. And I know what it's like to try and manage the politics and the ideas that you're trying to get across and the different demands that you've got on you. So if you're an individual that's responsible for the website, such as this one, then you're under a lot of pressure to serve your company well. And if the role falls on somebody else, maybe there's one marketing person at this firm, then you're also then juggling all sorts of other things, right? So there's a lot of pressures on you. So I get it. And when we're tapped out and we're stretched thin, we make mistakes. And there are some mistakes on this website, guys and gals. I'm not seeing people, for starters. I've got, apart from perhaps this here case study. This here case study. With Portex's middleware solution, we're poised to cut costs and improve our ability to serve our customers in real time. Portex's reusable APIs will significantly simplify the workflow, cutting down on the time we previously spent off. Whoa! Fell asleep there. Buzzword bingo! Okay, sorry. I can be a little bit antagonistic with this stuff because it's such a missed opportunity. Look up here, we've got AI powered integration for banks. So types of customer. Do you see yourself in here? This is the answer that is happening, right? Is we want people to see themselves when they come to our website, right? We want people to identify with what they see so that they understand it's relevant, right? Because if you come here and it's like for rocket ship manufacturers and you're a bank, that's not going to be relevant. So I get it. I understand why that happens. There's different ways of doing it. And a couple of things. Number one is focus. So who is your ICP, right? I mean, who's your market? The market here is finance, and it's may well be of a certain size. It's a hub for connecting these elements and data. So there's going to be a certain driver within the market about that, such as having multiple systems or aging systems. Maybe that might be another part of the market profile. And then the ICP is going to get even more specific about the size of the bank, the geography, location, the types of buyer who are involved, and at a bank it's going to be a committee, so who on that committee, and then you get down into the psychographics or the persona of the ICP as well. So you've kind of got those three layers of market, ICP, and then the persona. And there's different ways of doing this, right? So if you think about who the ICP is, who is it? Is it somebody who's responsible for bringing all these things together? So what's that experience like? What are the challenges? What are the threats? What's in the zeitgeist right now? One of our frameworks that we're not going to get into today talks about transformation and the transformations happening in the world. When we look at that, we can tap into it, right? And so that's part of our narrative framework. Today, we're focusing on the nice and simple tip of the iceberg of story, which is the power of 3D story. Desire, difficulty, denouement. Do we see desire here? Anywhere? Not explicitly. Implicitly, yes, because obviously the implicit need to connect things, but we're not calling it out. Difficulty, we're not talking about the challenge. We're not even, this website at this level isn't even talking about the pain. We'll often see like problem solution, right? Even if it's not getting to the nut of the story and connecting with the human side of it. I'm not seeing that here. If we scroll down a bit, what do we see? We see more facts, more what we do, what we deliver, infuse connectivity as a service. What brought you here today? So now we get to what brought you here today. Even before reading this is a missed opportunity. Most of our customers started with one of these common integration issues. So loan operations, LOS automation, digital banking automation, change of address, new account opening, wire origination. What brought you here today? Those are not the things that brought them here today. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yes, Matthew, yes, they are. We did the research. We know we built this product. These are the reasons. Digital banking, new account opening. New account opening. Did you know, Matthew, that with new account opening, that if you're working as an FI, in FI, I'm not familiar with that particular. We've worked with fintech, but financial institution customers? I've worked with fintech, and I don't know what this particular acronym is. Don't use acronyms on your website. Spell it out. you make people feel stupid if they can't figure out. I work with fintech and I don't know what that means. I feel really dumb right now. Let's say financial institutions, shall we? So most of our financial institution customers come here for new account opening. They don't come here to open a new account, you big silly goose. They come here because there's some kind of problem in how they provide the service of new account opening. What is that problem? And what does it feel like? Like, how urgent is it? Right? Okay, so start your AI-powered transformation in the middle. So then this is assuming that we know what's going on. And look, there's all of this information is needed somewhere, not on the homepage. The beauty of the web and this little thing. Sorry, I'm gonna get antagonistic here. Antagonism is my love language. Sorry, guys. There's this little wonderful thing called hypertext markup language in what we like to call Web 1.0. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to link between documents. That means if we've got scientific research at the Center for European Research Nuclear, CERN, then if we have a paper or a piece of technical information about particle accelerator, and there's important references in that document, we can connect the words or pictures on that page to other information, both at our institution and at other institutions. It is absolutely wonderful. And what that means is we don't have to put everything on one page. Okay? You've already got these different sections up here, guys and gals, right? Make use of them. Take people on the journey where they're going to need them. Because if I land on this page, in fact, we'll ask the Teardown AI that we're going to use here. We will ask it. Okay, let's go. Here we are. Okay. Let's do, this site. Sorry for shouting. Okay. And I'm going to do a screenshot because sometimes we get cached versions of sites. And I better do the whole thing. I cut off the contact part, and it might be sensitive to that, and say that there's no call to action, and we want to give them the credit for that. We'll drop that in our GPT as well, and then we'll also scroll down and do the next part as well. This is just giving the AI enough more than just the website. I get mixed results when I do this. I'm not sure if it's a ChatGPT thing, an OpenAI thing, or a Matthew thing, or a Go Narrative thing when we build these. But I found Claude to be a little bit better recently with accessing sites and pulling the information off of it. We'll do a screenshot of this one. Actually, you know what? If I scroll up a little bit further, do this, and then do this, and get. Oh, okay. I'll just do this, and then I'll do the next one because I want to see it all together. It's more for me than the AI, right? Because it's gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure this out. Okay. I'm just gonna. Now I'm doing this. I'm like, I'm gonna do the start your AI powered journey as well. There's so much material for us to work with here. So much, too much. That's not a good thing, guys and gals. You don't. I'll zoom out a little bit to get this little one. Once. Like those students I was on the judging panel with today, talking about clarity, being clear. Okay. I'm gonna go from there. Right, let's do this site, said Matthew, shouting. Okay. Let's see if it to my point about custom GPTs, let's see if it asks for the prime directive. Okay, that's something that doesn't have to tell us that. Looks like it's finding it. Why is it doing? It wasn't doing this. It wasn't doing this the other day, and now it is. Ah, the joys of working with AI. Okay, I'm just gonna say you have it. Because you do. Gotta love it. Okay. So it's analyzed this, looked at the website, and we're gonna have a look at its suggestions and see how similar these suggestions were to what I was talking about. Okay. Desire. Remember, people want something. We're not moved to change if we're not moved to feel something. The visitor, a busy bank or fintech leader, well, no banks are coming to websites, not yet. Maybe maybe things will be different in the not too distant future. Somebody at a bank, maybe I'll make some notes to go through this. Not a bank, a person at a bank. Okay, I'll just take that as a note. Let's see, wants control and relief. They want seamless integration, fewer one-off projects, cheaper vendor headaches. Their desire is clear, but Portex only says AI-powered integration. Connect any. Term soup without the visceral hook of your need for relief right now. Difficulty. What pain are they feeling? Remember we said hint. It's almost like the GPT knows what's in my head. Hints at vendor management overhead, manual workflows and integration time sink, but never shows the sleepless nights or upset CFO demanding ROI. There's no human suffering. Remember what we were talking about earlier? In an age of AI, all we've got is our humanity, peeps. All we've got is our humanity. We've got to hold on to that. We've got to put that front and center, because all this stuff is easy enough to copy, right? I'm going to come up with new copy for this website on this, even if it means going over the 1 hour that I'd allocated to spend with you. I will do it. I will show you it. And it's probably going to come really soon. So anyway, no human suffering, okay? They say minimizing and automate, but neglect to unease the user with emotional specifics, the dread of launch delays, the burnout of dev teams. I would add things like the uncertainty of how to connect one thing to another, right? I mean, you may know and love Zapier and if this, then that. I do, but does everybody, right? And if not, then they don't know how to connect things together. And middleware is also all about connecting things together. If they don't understand Zapier, then they don't understand this. You could use, like, you could say, and yeah, this is free unsolicited advice. And that's the risk I run doing these things, but I love helping people. And some of my mentors have said I give too much away. So I could say, I know what we should have here. I know the metaphor, and I've given you just enough anyway to figure it out. Answers in the chat. Have you ever heard of the pitch for Alien, the movie Alien? It was like Jaws in space. Okay. So this is like Zapier for fintech. Or this is like Zapier for banks and financial institutions, right? Now that's going to assume that your target audience knows what Zapier is, but you know, you're pressing the human buttons and you're pressing the term buttons. And that's why story is so much more important than storytelling, because a crap story makes for a crap story told. That sounds really good. I'm going to say that again. Story is so much more important than storytelling. Do you know why? Do you know why story is so much more important than storytelling? Because a crap story is a crap story told. There we go. Said it again. Was that the right? Did I say it the right way? Okay. No human suffering, burnout. Okay. Denouement. They drop broad promises, fast track, reusable, real time. By the way, these are crutch words, right? Go Narrative can fast track your storytelling with reusable stories that you create in real time, right? You can plug these in anywhere. There's no real effort has gone into these. And I'm not saying that you didn't make an effort putting this website together or putting the messaging framework together. And you were making an effort. You didn't put enough of it into this, and that's where your opportunity is. Where's the stomach lurch relief? We need something like wake up Monday morning knowing your core's in sync with fintech partners, right? Not generic bullet points. What else do we have? So the emo pyramid. Remember I said communication, we've got that. Thanks AI for getting this wrong. It's literally got these in its instructions the right way around. Communication is level 1. Belief, motivation is level 2. Emotion is level 3. And sensation is level 4. Viewing it this way, you can say to be number 1, right? You'd need to be the top here with sensation. But I like thinking about it the other way around, because communication is a surface layer, and then what's below going deeper, deeper, deeper. And so here, so I'm going to go from that way. So at the top we've got messaging is, your messaging is, if you're level, it says level 4 here. If you're at this level, the messaging is tech rational. For example, APIs, AI and connectors, no raw feelings. No, we saw the team members hit burnout, right? So it's already leading into the next thing. If we go the next step down, it leaves me thinking maybe this works, but I'm not convinced it's for me. But it articulates the belief. Like, for example, we could say, I believe that every customer of every bank and fintech firm deserves systems that work and are accurate, right? That is a belief, right? And I believe, another one could be, I believe that if you're responsible for a bank's or financial institutions' systems, that you have the right to access tools that make your job easier. Like, I can have that as a belief, right? And we can say that. And then emotion is where we talk about this. Look, it called out the testimonial that I was like falling asleep reading, right? You got to have the emotional engagement, and then where does that hit you? Is it in the gut? Is it giving you a headache? Is it a full body like tenseness? Do you feel sick? Can you not sleep? Right? Like, I woke up an hour early this morning because I'm stressed out about this thing that I'm trying to figure out, and it woke me up. And I was like, oh, I hate when this happens, especially when I've got a stream, because then it's in the afternoon, and you know what it can be like with later in the day kind of stuff, right? I love doing these though, so it gives me the energy. But it did cross my mind, right? And it wasn't a headache, it wasn't like a full body tension, but it was like this sort of sense of foreboding, like a where you have to tell yourself to breathe fully, that kind of feeling. And if I was to, I'm not going to go into it. It's a business problem that I'm talking about. But if I go into what that is, and I was talking about the reason why it is, like imagine it's some software not working, or imagine it's somebody we're working with that's not quite working, or imagine it's an employee it's not quite working, or imagine that it's a problem with some hardware, right? Whatever those things are. Now imagine that I'm selling one of those things. I'm selling hardware. I'm Lenovo. We're a big fan of Lenovo. No, there's not product placement, just we're raving fans, I guess. And as Lenovo, if Lenovo's who I'm talking about here, then, and it's not, I could say, as Lenovo, I could tap into that and be like, get the sleep you deserve. Don't wake up an hour early, teeth clenched, worried about how you're going to make sure your AI workstations are running it full tilt. Okay. See, the power of this stuff. And this is why it's not just the telling, because if I say storytelling to you, you end up thinking about a lot of the things that we latch onto with storytelling, movies and books and you name it, right? And thinking about how I'm going to put that on our website. Like, am I going to have like the whole lightsaber battle, full-blown video story? Yes, I do have a lightsaber on my desk. And that's not it. This is tapping into this operating system of story. This is why this stuff is so important. And this is so different to so much of the storytelling advice that you'll see out there. Then we talk about why it falls flat. Okay, so recommendations. I promised we would get to recommendations, and it's happening after the top of the hour. Create emotional contrast. Open with a character, like a bank VP feeling exhausted by vendor chaos. Show the mess. Late night Slack pings, missed commits, team tension. Highlight the body relief. Within 48 hours, meetings dropped from five a week to one. The CTO slept through the night. Look. This is made up, okay? But if I have this data, if I know the suffering that your customers are going through, I will include it in this, right? This is placeholder, right? This is examples, right? So you can take that, take your customer SAT scores, take your feedback from events and from the little pop-ups you put on your website and use those, right, to figure out what these pains are. I was drowning. Our launch was pushed twice and my lead dev had 20 tabs open, exhaustion in her eyes. Portex flipped it. We launched on time. Boom. Look at that. Embed the emotional journey visually. An emotive hero image. Come on, heroes. Not just diagrams to show tension, releasing, right? So you can see how you take this. Again, it's not about knowing exactly what story to tell and going and telling it. It's about understanding the story, and then however it manifests, even if it's visuals, it's manifesting in a consistent way. And we're talking about story here. I'm not even going to take you to the world of narratives, right? We're talking big story that leads everything, and then the stories that ladder up to that, and then the visuals and the things we say through each of the stories. And that can start to seem a bit complex, but it's all using the same precepts. And that's why the power of 3D story is that tip of the iceberg. You can start using it right now. And as you go deeper, and for example, if you worked with us, me and Go Narrative, and we sat down with you and we took you through our story accelerator, which you can learn about on our website, by the way. If you go up to the website, go and have a look at the services, go have a look at Story Accelerator. Like if we sat down with you and went through this process, and had you take our business storytelling assessment, which you can take, by the way, but we have got a special one we would use for your leadership team, get the sense of those elements of the story, take your leadership team through their why discovery, understand what's driving them, get those inputs, understand what's happening within the organization, what's happening within your customers, the pain points you're feeling, right? We take all of that. You just give us all of that. And then we run it through a combination of human and AI engines and creativity, right? And we make sure that the human aspect is in there. And we're really good, by the way, at using the AI tools and tuning things and bringing the human element in to make it work, right? Okay, so Portex nails product clarity but fails miserably on emotional connection. No story arc, no rope. You can't feel the pain or relief. Right now it's functional, not experiential. Fix that and you'll wake hearts, not just digital flows. So here we are at the end of our wonderful journey for today. Remember where we started talking about the power of 3D story. And it's so simple, right? It's that heart, that desire. It's the roadblocks, the difficulties, the things that are standing in the way. Man, right? It's all about the desire. Like everything, like I said, from wanting a sip of water to wanting those 5 meetings to go down to 1 meeting, to having the confidence as a banking VP, like whatever you want, wanting this awesome lightsaber and asking me where I got it. Okay, right? Reach out to me, DM me on LinkedIn if you like Star Wars, and ask me where I got this. If you don't know, if you know, good for you. And if we end up having a conversation, ask me about my George Lucas story, and I'll tell you that as well. So all of that ladders back up to the fact it's about what we want, right? What do you want? Do you want this? Do you want to get the dust off the sensor in your digital camera, right? Because that's where it starts, right? And it can be a splinter in the finger or dust on the sensor that you're trying to get rid of, or it can be aspirational, it can be positive, right? It can be either of those things. It can be, I promise. But things stand in the way of that. Therefore, we have to find a way through. We have to untangle that knot. We have to make it through that deep, dark forest. And that is the denouement. Desire, difficulty, denouement. And that, my friends, that is the power of 3D story. And if you have any questions, DM me. I'll answer all my DMs, or shoot us an email at gnhelp@gonarrative.com. And we would love to hear from you and what story you're trying to solve. And look, we've got a couple of super simple products and services. One is called Story Discovery, where we help you figure out your story. Draw your story out. It's your story. We play this role of a mirror, right? And as principal consultant, this is what I spend a lot of my time doing, and I love it. It's like a cheat code for story glory, like hearing all these stories, like those quotes I shared earlier, like doing story discovery with people is such a joy. Like the story bank I have in my mind, I'm an addict for story, right? And we also have an offering that's even lighter than that, and it's literally, the story discovery is like 90 minutes, and you actually end up getting your story. We have a surgical story sprint, which is a 45 minutes and a half page, kind of one page, like the things you need to be focusing on with your story. That includes a why discovery, it includes your story assessment, and it's boom. So you spend 20 minutes doing those assessments, 45 minutes on the phone with me, and I will tell you what you need to be doing. And it's not me telling you, it's me reflecting to you. You tell me, and I help you decode it, right? Those patterns. I'm an addict for pattern matching, right? And so all that diary keeping and going all the way back to even 6-month-old Matthew, I've been doing this my entire life. And all of that, that's a great place to start, is with your story. Even if you were the CEO of the biggest company in the world, if you can figure this part out, you're going to be able to figure out your team stories better, the people you work with, the people you lead, the people you manage, your customers, the individuals at your customers, everybody. And it's going to be a tool for empathy. You can understand people better, right? That's a byproduct of this. And you're building that awareness of the stories of other people and enjoying learning it as well. And like I said, first chapter of this, if you want to do it on your own, literally the playbook is there for you. And for $25, guys and gals, $25, you can get it from Amazon. You can get it from Amazon. Here you go, the ticker and the little pop-up thing. $25. Get it. Go to the website now, get it for free, the first chapter. But get the paper copy for $25. That's it. You sit down and you jot all these ideas down for yourself, your business, and take that and go put it into ChatGPT and say, here it is. You can even say, use the power of 3D story. It'll go and find it, because we've got stuff on the internet. It's probably in all that. We obviously have custom stuff we've forced it into. And get going, right? Do it yourself. Why not? Start there. Charity starts at home. There's no care like self-care. And when you need some help, make sure you reach out to the people who've been doing this for 47 years. Right. What is next? What do I want you to do next? Well, I said it a little bit just now, but I'm going to say something super, super simple. I want you to think about what story you're going to tell tomorrow. Okay? What is that story? What story are you going to tell tomorrow? It could be a business story, it could be a personal story, but there's a story that you want to tell. And I want you to tell it by telling the desire, what you want, the difficulty that stands in the way, and the denouement of the untangling of what stood in the way, and everything you learned and the whole journey you went on to get to what you wanted. And if you do that, you will have just told a story, and it will be great. Pick your best friend, your spouse, one of your kids, your parents, one of your team, and tell a story. And do that. Think about it tonight. Use the power of 3D story to figure it out tonight. Go and do it tomorrow. Tell the story tomorrow. And then after you've told it, tell them how you figured out and remembered how to tell it. And tell them about the power of 3D story. You do that with 3 people in 3 days, and you will never, ever, ever forget it. There's like science that proves this. All the training stuff, all that training research, all the studies, if you go and tell people, you'll remember. It's like teaching. Because you're teaching, you end up learning. Because you're repeating it, you end up learning. All of these things, right? So you want to tell a better story? You want to be better at storytelling? Use the power of 3D story to understand it. You want to be a better storyteller, but you don't know what to do, you don't know where to start. You came here today, and you learned about the power of 3D story, and you're using that as a tool to break it down and then tell it out, right? And I just use the power of 3D story to say that. Like, this is literally, if you go look at our website, and like we run our website through this as well to make sure that we're talking in the right way. So that's it. Guys and gals, welcome to the end of our Friday Teardown. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you. Remember, any questions, go ahead and shoot them over to that email address you can see on the screen. Pop over to our website, take our business storytelling assessment, download the first chapter of the book. You've got so much at your disposal to go and just crush this. You're going to crush it. You are going to crush your storytelling. You're going to crush your storytelling. You're going to get so good at storytelling that you're just going to be like breaking through all sorts of barriers, because it adds to all of the amazing stuff you're doing today. Think of the amazing stuff that Port X is doing, right? That they've already got that awesomeness, that amazingness. And now if they take this advice, they're going to break through to that next level of funding, get that Series B funding, which I don't think they got yet. I think they just got Series A. It's kind of like, the lightsaber, it's so cool, but you know what's even cooler? Either it being in a Star Wars movie or you having one and getting to play with your kids with it, right? The journey, the experience is so important, and we can talk about that. We can use this gift of language that we have and the gift of this communications protocol that is story for our story operating system, and we can crush it, and you can crush it, and you got this. Send me a DM, send me an email, and I can't wait to hear what story you're going to tell tomorrow. That's all from me for now. Happy Friday, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.